It was 11:47 p.m. when Pastor Elijah Carter eased his ivory-white sedan off the city highway and onto Maple Avenue's quiet stretch of streetlights. His heart still buzzed with the energy of the evening's youth outreach, laughter echoing down the sanctuary halls, the triumphant shouts of teens discovering hope for the first time. Now, behind the wheel, he replayed the moment the last teenager hugged him goodnight, the weight of his worn leather Bible resting on the passenger seat beside his briefcase. As he rounded the corner by the closed corner store, a sudden flash of red and blue lit up his rearview mirror. Startled, Carter's hand tightened on the steering wheel. He hadn't noticed his right headlight flicker that afternoon, when a loose wiring harness in the basement wires needed repair. He exhaled, switching on the left blinker, and guided the sedan onto the narrow gravel shoulder beneath a solitary street lamp that buzzed overhead. Officer Ryan Barnes emerged from his cruiser, boots clicking on the asphalt, flashlight in hand. Carter rolled down his window, keeping both hands visible on the wheel. The bright beam danced across his calm, lined face and the embroidered cross on his charcoal suit coat. "Good evening, officer," he said, voice warm but edged with fatigue. "How can I help you?" Barnes's gaze flicked briefly to the Bible's leather spine, then back to Carter's own ID clipped to the visor. "Headlight out," he replied crisply, shining the flashlight at the dark lens. He sniffed the air. No alcohol, no incense. Just the lingering perfume of cedarwood and the faint tang of evening rain on hot pavement. "License and registration, please." Carter retrieved his documents with deliberate care. He offered them across the sill. "I'm sorry about that," he said, concern softening his tone. "I just left a youth event at Bethel Community Church. Late night, long evening. I didn't realize the headlight was out." He pointed to the well-worn Bible beside him. "That Bible and my pastoral badge are up to date. I can call someone to take my message to the folks I was with." Barnes flipped through the papers without meeting his eyes. Each rustle of the pages felt louder than the distant hum of traffic. Carter watched the officer's uniformed silhouette, noting the visible tension in his shoulders. Under the street lamp's yellow halo, the night held its breath. Two men bound by duty, separated by unspoken doubts, each waiting to see whether respect or suspicion would guide the moments to come. Officer Ryan Barnes stood in the gravel shoulder's glare, flashlight beam cutting a harsh wedge of light across Pastor Carter's dashboard. The engine's ticking as it cooled was the only sound besides the distant hum of summer crickets. Barnes flipped open his notepad, pen poised, but his eyes remained locked on Carter's face, keenly alert for any sign of deception. "Pastor, where exactly are you coming from tonight?" Barnes asked, voice clipped. He didn't wait for the answer, shining the light back at Carter's worn Bible, the cracked leather spine marked by creases from years of nighttime hospital visits and bedside prayers. Carter inhaled slowly, met Barnes's gaze with calm courtesy, and said, "I was leading our youth ministry's late-night outreach at Bethel Community Church, counseling teens, serving snacks, praying with families." His tone was steady, the faint tremor of fatigue hidden beneath practiced warmth. "I'm on my way home now." Barnes jerked his head toward the console. "That's so?" He swept the beam across Carter's passenger seat briefcase, its edge stamped with the church's crest. "You expect me to believe you're driving around at midnight for youth events?" Suspicion crowded his features. His jaw clenched, brow furrowed. The pastor nodded. "Yes, officer. Those kids need a safe place, and we stay late to ensure they get home safely." Barnes's flashlight traced the empty street behind them, the storefront shutters down, the street lamp overhead flickering. He glanced back at Carter's hands, folded calmly on the wheel, and then at his dark blue suit, pressed and spotless. A whispered thought hung in his mind. Black man alone at night. Better safe than sorry. "Let me see your headlights again," Barnes muttered, as if the headlight violation had suddenly become a lifeline. Carter switched on the headlights. The left beam snapped to life, dispelling the darkness in a dull yellow arc. Barnes scribbled in his pad, eyes flicking between that single beam and Carter's unflinching gaze. In that charged silence, broken only by the street lamp's buzz and the soft rustle of Carter's Bible against the dash, neither man spoke. Each weighed the other, one measuring worth by uniform and suspicion, the other offering nothing but quiet integrity. And as the night closed in around them, every unspoken assumption stretched taut. awaiting the moment when true character would reveal itself. Just as Officer Barnes reached for his ticket book, a blood-curdling scream echoed from 2 blocks down, slicing through the night's stillness. Both men froze. Barnes's pen halted mid-scratch. Carter's eyes widened behind the rearview glass. A second scream came, frantic and panicked, punctuated by the sickening crunch of metal on concrete. "Stay here," Carter called, unbuckling his seatbelt in one swift motion. He swung the driver's door open and sprinted toward the sound, leaving Barnes scrambling to follow. Streetlights revealed the wreckage of a sedan wedged against a fire hydrant, its front end crumpled like paper. Beneath the driver's side, a young man lay motionless, arms splayed across the gutter's slick pavement, his breath shallow, if any. Carter dropped to his knees, sliding off his jacket to clear space around the victim's head. His fingers deftly tilted the man's jaw, checking for an open airway, then pressed 2 fingers against the carotid pulse point at his throat. Nothing. "I need chest compressions," Carter shouted back over his shoulder. Barnes arrived, flashlight and radio in hand, eyes wide with alarm. Without hesitation, Carter placed the heel of his hand on the center of the young man's chest and began compressions at a steady rate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, counting aloud in measured cadence. Barnes relayed the scene. "EMS, this is Unit 27, Code 3 to Maple and 9th. One victim unresponsive, performing CPR now." Barnes tore open his patrol jacket, draping it beneath the victim's head as Carter alternated breaths with compressions. The air was thick with the tang of gasoline and the acrid odor of leaking coolant. Carter's jacket gleamed with sweat under the street lamp as he whispered a quick prayer between cycles. "Lord, breathe life." Moments later, the victim's chest jerked, a single gasp that broke the rhythm of their efforts. Carter's gloved hand shot to the man's forehead as he delivered another slow breath, watching as color rushed back to the motionless face. Barnes knelt beside him, voice hushed with awe. "You saved him." Carter simply nodded, eyes on the recovering pulse beneath his fingers, knowing that in that raw moment of crisis, doubt had no place, only faith in action and the miracle of a life reclaimed. The wail of approaching sirens grew into a crescendo as the first ambulance skidded to a halt, blue and red lights painting the crumpled sedan and its surroundings in urgent flashes. Paramedics spilled onto the asphalt, stretcher and trauma bag at the ready, but it was Pastor Carter's steady presence that held the scene together. He rose from his kneeling position, hands trembling only slightly, and pressed one palm to the victim's chest as the medics took over. "Place the backboard under him," Carter directed in a calm, resonant voice, "and continue compressions until he breathes on his own." He stepped back, allowing the EMTs to slide the board beneath the man. One of them, a tall woman with a determined gaze, hooked an oxygen mask over the victim's face. Carter moved to the head, cradling it as though holding a newborn, and whispered softly, "Lord, you are the healer. Breathe your life into him." His lips barely moved, but the sincerity of his prayer echoed louder than the sirens. As the paramedics resumed chest compressions and bag valve mask ventilations, Carter placed a hand gently on the man's forehead, bowing his head in silent intercession. The air was thick with the mesh of medical urgency and the pastor's humble plea. Officer Barnes hovered at the edge of the circle of care, radiating a mixture of respect and awe. Moments stretched into an eternity of collective effort. Then, as Carter lifted his hand from the victim's brow, a soft, raspy groan escaped the man's lungs. The bag valve unit paused, and the EMT guiding the mask glanced down, eyes widening. The victim's chest heaved with a single deep breath. Color bloomed beneath his pallid skin. "No way," Barnes breathed, stepping forward. The paramedics exchanged stunned looks, but moved with the precision of rehearsed choreography, checking pulses and reflexes. Carter knelt beside the stretcher, sliding his hand back to the man's sweaty forehead. The victim, eyes fluttering open, found Carter's gaze first and managed a weak, disoriented smile. "Thank you, Pastor," he rasped, voice raw with shock. Carter offered a firm, reassuring nod. "You're going to be all right," he said quietly, voice steady despite the tears glistening in his own eyes. Around them, the paramedics worked swiftly, securing IV lines, administering fluids, and preparing to transport the man to the trauma center. Carter handed over his Bible to the lead EMT. Officer Barnes watched, chest tightening as he realized he'd borne witness to something that defied pure medical explanation, a convergence of expert care and a pastor's compassionate invocation sparking a literal revival of life. In the flickering ambulance lights, he saw his own assumptions crumble, replaced by a profound respect for the man who brought both prayer and practical skill to the brink of a miracle. The ambulance doors slammed shut with a resonant thud, sealing the wounded man inside as its engine roared to life. Red and blue lights pulsed against the curb, illuminating the twisted metal of the sedan and the wet sheen of spilled coolant. Officer Barnes stood frozen, flashlight still gripped in one hand, his gaze fixed on Pastor Carter's calm figure, kneeling beside two frightened young women. The victim's gurney rattled past them as the EMTs guided it toward the ambulance, and Carter placed a reassuring hand on the man's shoulder, steadying him even as paramedics loaded him aboard. Barnes took a hesitant step forward, boots crunching on gravel. The sharp scent of gasoline and the lingering smoke from Carter's breath, a faint aroma of frankincense curling around his voice, filled the air. The two women clung to Carter's coat sleeves, tears streaking their cheeks. One whispered, "Thank you, Pastor," voice choking on relief. Barnes cleared his throat, startling himself with its roughness. Carter rose, brushing dust from his knees, Bible still tucked beneath his arm. His eyes, though weary, held a gentle intensity as he turned to face the officer. With each siren howl, Barnes felt the last barriers of suspicion crumble. He swallowed the lump in his throat and approached, shoulders slumped in contrition. "Pastor Carter," Barnes began, voice low, I'm sorry. I came here thinking you were just another late-night driver." His hand hovered near his holster, as though unsure whether to draw or to extend. Carter folded his Bible against his chest, waiting. Barnes's eyes flicked to Carter's face, the compassion etched in every line, and he found the courage to continue. "I judged you. I let my bias get in the way." He exhaled, fatigue and regret mingling in his tone. "I should have listened. What you did back there, it was incredible." His gaze dropped to the street, then lifted again. "You saved his life." Carter's expression softened. He offered Barnes a nod of understanding rather than rebuke. "We all have our roles, officer," he replied, voice steady. "Tonight, my ministry happened where it was needed most." He gestured to the flashing ambulance. "God works through many hands." Barnes took a trembling breath and unhooked his patrol cap, holding it in front of him. "Your actions reminded me that service and compassion can't be measured by appearance or hour of night. Thank you for showing me grace." He replaced his cap and extended his hand. Carter shook it firmly, the grip warm and unwavering. As the ambulance sped away, Barnes walked beside Carter back toward the patrol car. The weight of unspoken apologies and newfound respect settled between them like a sacred bond. Under the halo of the street lamp, once a symbol of suspicion, it now cast them both in a kinder light, reflecting the profound shift of heart that had transformed a routine traffic stop into a true testimony of faith and humanity. The night air hung heavy with the afterglow of flashing lights as Pastor Carter and Officer Barnes returned to the curb where Carter's ivory sedan sat under the lone street lamp. Carter's Bible lay open on the hood, its pages marked with dog-eared notes. Barnes paused beside the driver's window, the soft click of his holster release echoing in the quiet. Barnes reached inside and retrieved the pastor's license and registration from the passenger seat, placing them gently on the roof beside the Bible. "Pastor," he began, voice low and steady, "about that citation." He trailed off, watching Carter's calm profile. Carter offered a patient nod. "I understand why you pulled me over," he said quietly, "but I appreciate you taking the time to listen and help tonight." Barnes exhaled, tension draining from his shoulders. He shook his head, sliding the documents back into Carter's outstretched hand. "No citation," he said firmly. "I'm not filing one. He stopped, gathering courage. "I misjudged you. I saw a black man driving alone at night, and let that cloud my judgment. That was wrong." His admission hung in the air, more powerful than any fine could ever be. Carter closed his Bible and looked Barnes in the eye. Thank you for saying that, he replied. It takes humility to admit when we're wrong. Barnes ran a hand through his hair, the street lamp casting rippling shadows across his uniform. I want to do better, he said. Would you, would you come by my church this Sunday? I'd like to see where your faith comes from, what guides your hands in moments like tonight. A gentle smile curved Carter's lips as he tucked his documents into his jacket pocket. You'd be welcome, he said. Our service begins at 10 a.m. We have a small breakfast fellowship beforehand. You're invited. Barnes nodded, relief and anticipation mingling in his eyes. Thank you, Pastor. I'll be there. Under the soft hum of the street lamp, the two men stood in companionable silence for a moment, united by the night's events. Then Carter slid behind the wheel, Barnes gave a respectful nod, and the pastor's SUV rolled away, headlights merging with the city's midnight glow. In the wake of that courageous admission, both men felt a quiet transformation. A routine traffic stop had become a bridge to understanding, fellowship, and the promise of a shared path forward. The Sunday sun streamed through the stained glass windows of Bethel Community Church, casting jewel-toned prisms across the polished wooden pews. Officer Ryan Barnes paused at the back of the sanctuary, uniform neatly pressed, cap held respectfully in his hands. The soft murmur of morning greetings and the scent of fresh coffee from the side hall mingled around him, but his focus remained on the pulpit where Pastor Elijah Carter prepared to speak. At 10 a.m. on the dot, the organist's final chord faded, and Carter stepped forward in his charcoal suit, Bible in hand. The congregation, families, teens from Friday's outreach, and even a few skeptical neighbors, settled into reverent silence. Carter's eyes swept the room until they met Barnes's at the rear, and a warm smile passed between them. Last Friday night, Carter began, voice rich with emotion, we witnessed a miracle not of my making, but of faith in action. He recounted the headlight stop, the screams for help, and the moment of the man's collapse. His words painted the flicker of that street lamp, the crunch of gravel underfoot, and Barnes's transformation from suspicion to service. With each detail, the measured chest compressions, the whispered prayer of healing, the congregation leaned in, absorbing every beat of that late-night story. As Carter described the victim's first rasping breath and the ambulance's triumphant departure, Barnes felt the weight of every assumption he'd carried. When Carter closed his Bible and invited the officer to stand, a hush fell. Barnes rose, stepping into the aisle as the congregation watched. He approached the pulpit, voice steady but humble. I came here tonight seeking to understand the faith that saved a life, he said, and I found something greater, a reminder that compassion transcends uniform and skin color. Pastor Carter, thank you for showing me that true service is born of respect and love. The sanctuary erupted into applause, soft at first, then swelling into a standing ovation. Tears glimmered on faces young and old. Children peeked from behind hymnals. Elders beamed. In that moment, a white police officer and a black pastor stood shoulder to shoulder, a living testament to reconciliation and grace. After the service, Barnes joined the fellowship breakfast, slipping into a circle of teens he'd once greeted with formality. Now, they patted him on the back, jostled him for a pancake, and asked about his experience. Carter clapped Barnes on the shoulder. Welcome to the family, he said, and guided him toward the coffee urn. As the last hymn faded and the congregation spilled onto the sunlit steps, arms linked, voices rising in blessing, Barnes and Carter stood together beneath the cross. The world beyond the church doors waited with its challenges, but here, in the warmth of restored faith and shared humanity, they had forged a new beginning.